John Riley, we know you're here. Lenny,
Yes, sir.
Lenny Podesta. Lenny, are you here? Lenny Pedestris. Lara Siraki. I'm here. Jim Budney. Jim Budney. Ted Van Oz.
Here.
Okay, so at this point, Lenny is missing and Jim Budney is not checked in. Okay? So when they come in, they'll probably announce themselves.
Text those two guys the phone number for the call-in.
Which
I think
two were
we
they?
have it.
There's
Budney
going to be
and-
Podestas and Budney.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, am I getting feedback? Okay. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good, Bill.
Okay. So now I'd like a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move Kennedy.
Kennedy, okay. And is there support?
I will support him.
All right, Les supported. Any items to add or delete? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the meeting minutes of our June 9th meeting. We've all had a chance to look at them. If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I will make a motion, we approve the minutes of the June meeting.
Right?
Support
Motion by
Kennedy.
Kennedy, okay. Thank you.
Hey, Phil, Chad,
Yes. Would you say that again?
hi, Bill,
Jim Budney,
yes.
you're in the meeting. Okay, I made note of that. So the only one missing at this point is Lenny. Next, we'll entertain a motion to approve the bill vouchers for the month of June. Are there any questions? There are very few bills, actually, so entertain a motion for approval.
So moved,
Who is that?
Jim Budney.
Okay, Jim. Is there support? And Lara supports. All in favor? If there's no more questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 on our agenda is review of statements of revenues and expenditures. We're early on in the fiscal year, so unless there's any questions, we'll move to item 8. Any questions? If not, we have the June Treasurer's Report. You've had a chance to look at that? For the balance of $3.5 million in our DPS funds. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Jim Budney.
Okay, Jim.
Support Kennedy.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have an opportunity for public comment. I don't know if there's anybody listening in on the public.
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Bill, this is
Greg
Les.
Carmen.
I
Yes,
think
Les.
Lenny's gonna be excused because they got 2 rescue calls going on at the same time.
Okay, well then, Lenny is excused. Okay, thanks for that information, Les. Is there anybody in the public that's on the line?
Yes. Greg
Yes.
Carmenson.
Yes, Greg. Hi,
yeah,
Greg.
Hi, how you doing, Bill? Good.
Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base with the commission and about an issue that I've heard some talk about, and just wanted to see if you've heard anything about this. But I heard from pretty reliable sources that the bid package for the pier repairs on the Wayne County Bridge came back, and the bidder, apparently there was only one bidder who bid over $15 million, and there was engineering estimate of about 3.2 million. So
Wow.
my question is, has anyone heard about that? MDOT, of course, is handling the bidding, and has anybody heard about that or heard speculation about what that may mean in terms of the ability of the county and MDOT to do the pier repairs this year and hopefully open the bridge back up on time?
Who was the
Greg,
bidder? I'm curious.
Huh?
Who bid it?
Who is the bidder? You know, I'm not sure.
Who is
if
the
that's,
bidder?
been made, I'm not sure if that's been made public, so I can't really comment on that. But
Okay.
It's my understanding that, well, I'm just telling you the truth. I got this from kind of secondhand information, and I just wanted to check because I'm trying to fact check it myself, so I don't want to speculate too much about it. But it's floating around from fairly
Yeah.
reliable sources, and I just wanted to know if anyone else had heard about this.
Greg, this is Jim Budney. Yes, I heard about it, not through official channels. I did hear about it. Toby Construction supposedly got the bid, or is the only one that put a bid in. I have not heard other than what the amount of the bid was and that they were the only ones. That's all I've heard to this point.
Okay.
Greg, this is Bill Kostick. Our commission, we really haven't been involved in the bridges. We've been involved with trying to get the roads fixed. But the communication between the elected officials and the counties on bridges it's been there, not us. We're advisory. So it's just one of the issues we haven't been involved in. But I don't know if Derek knows anything more than that or not. Derek?
I'm familiar with the situation, but it's kind of limited to the information that Greg had presented. I understand that there was one bidder on the project. As Greg had mentioned, it was right around 15 million, with the engineer's estimate being at around 3.5. And I didn't see that information until today, and I obtained that information by actually going online. As Greg had mentioned, the bid was managed by MDOT. It's I believe 80% funded through federal dollars. That's why MDOT was handling it. What that means in the grand scheme of things, I reached out to my representative that I am familiar with at MDOT today to get some information about what that means. We haven't gotten really any direction because my understanding is they're mulling that around at the county as far as what they're going to do with that bid. I think as soon as they make a decision on what they're going to do with it, we'll have some more information that we'll be able to provide. And as Bill had mentioned, it probably won't come from DPS because we haven't been heavily involved in it, but it'll come from township administration. But really, at this point, we don't have any definitive information about what it all means. I don't know if you're aware or not, but this is the second time they've bid that underwater work, and I think they have a lot of things to consider, and I'm hopeful that they'll bring us up to speed as soon as they have something to report to us. So.
Okay.
So that is public knowledge on the internet. It's public knowledge on the internet, right?
If you go to
Yes.
MDOT's webpage.
So it's a yes. Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Answer
Okay.
yeah, and they didn't reach out to us and email it or anything like that. I found out that information by looking on my own. So like
Good. Good
John
job.
said, it's public information. Yes.
Derek, just a follow-up question. I know you might not know the answer.
Is that you, Greg?
Yeah, it's Greg. Yeah,
Okay.
you might not know the answer, and you might not be expected to know this either. But I'm just curious: does anybody with the commissioner, Derek, know if what the actual dollar amount that Wayne County has in hand for the project? Because it's been vague in my mind as exactly what money they've identified and what their actual budget is for the project.
I don't know that. What I can tell you is that the county receives, I think, an annual allocation from the federal government for capital improvement work. I would assume that that budget, they establish, priorities for those dollars at certain estimates, when they start their fiscal year. As most budgets are in a governmental setting, that they can be fluid and priorities can be adjusted. So the answer to your question is I don't know. I do not know how much they had allocated for the project, how much would be available for the project, or even for that matter, what their total annual federal allocation is.
Okay.
Short answer to your question is no.
Okay. All right. That's all.
Kennedy has a question.
Go ahead.
Just curious if anybody on the commission, maybe Ted and Jim and Derek, is this common practice to start a project and then learn out 3 months into it what it's going to cost?
Well,
There's
Go ahead,
three
Derek.
phases. Sorry, go ahead, Jim. You can take it.
yeah, you go ahead. That's fine. You're doing a good job.
There's three phases to the project. There's the above water work on the Parkway Bridge. There's the underwater work for the Parkway Bridge, and then there's the West River Road Bridge. What we're talking about is one of the three phases. The other two phases were separate contracts and separate scopes of work. So those were all bid, and the money was available, and they went ahead and contracted them, and they started the work on those. This third phase is been kind of the last phase to move forward in the process, and I think it's probably because of the complexity of the work, being that it's underwater, and I'm sure there's a variety of other issues. But I think to answer your question, that's not taking place. They're not halfway through the project and working with a budget that's unknown. That's the part of the project that hasn't, or part of the bridge construction in that area that hasn't occurred yet. So.
Okay, Phil?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just, okay, I understand. I mean, I just felt they've closed the bridge in May. They're starting the other phases, and it's obvious they're not going to open it up until this underwater part is accomplished, because that was the main reason for starting all this and combining it. And it just seems a little bit strange that we're well into the project and now we're looking at what I would assume is a rather significant cost increase in what was anticipated.
Well, I think that each one of these phases has their own unique components to them, with their own requirements for closure or not for closure. So I've been led to believe from previous conversations that we've had with the county and others that the underwater work, depending upon the scope of the work and the coordination with maritime traffic and whatnot, there's some ability there to do that work without closing the bridge. So,
okay.
So yeah, I mean, you could have the above water work done, you could have the West River Road Bridge done, and be working on the underwater work and still have the bridge open, maybe with some intermittent closures, like in the evenings or when they're doing certain parts of that work that were safety related, that they needed to close it for a short period of time. So maybe that answers your concern.
Okay, thanks, Derek. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other public wishing to speak?
This is Kevin Flavin.
Yes, Kevin.
Hi, how are you
How are
this
you?
evening? Good, thank
Good.
you. I wanted to say thank you to Derek for putting the glass recycle approval on the action item, or I don't know whether he did, but I know he investigated it, and I appreciate that to keep our recycling going. Also had a question about, I don't know whether this is a DPS issue or some other, there's a ravine down by the where the soccer fields are and the Airport Commerce Park that's being filled in. Is that a DPS area or is that somebody else?
You're talking
That's for
about
Derek. That's for Derek
north of
and
the
John.
soccer fields?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. John, you want to step in on that one? Kind of explain the history behind that?
Hi, Kevin, John Kime.
Hey, John.
That's recreation department area. What we did was during our water main projects, we gave them some bill to build a parking lot and a additional baseball field back there. So what you see right now is as far as we're going at this stage.
Just to add to that, I know that the township had done some wetland surveys back there to delineate the areas that could and could not be filled. So whatever filling has occurred out there has been in compliance with the wetland surveys and the limits of fill that were allowed under, the Eagle guidelines and whatnot and the wetland survey. So if the concern was filling of low areas or filling of wetlands, that was addressed by the township quite some time ago by getting that survey done and putting a plan together that addressed those issues.
That's great. The other question I had was at one point historically that area was remediated or supposedly was remediated after the military left, and there's still some folks say that there's still stuff buried there but contained. Is that the case?
This is Derek. That's probably a better question for the Commerce Park Commission and the airport. All that property back there was, part of the original Navy base, and I know they've done quite a few environmental assessments on those areas. I think the area that you're talking about used to be a gun range, and I know that through the development of the soccer fields and whatnot, they capped some of those areas in order to minimize the risk of contact by anybody that might be digging in the soil or something like that. But I think that all that information will be available through the Commerce Park Commission or the airport. We really don't have a whole lot to do with that.
When you say capped it, do you mean they put clay over it, or how did they cap it? Are you aware of that?
I'd probably be speaking out of turn as far as the methods that they used out there. Once again, probably a better question for them.
Okay. The reason, what I've kind of looked at and seen is that there is an underground aquifer back there that the material that's considered brown material or toxic material might be near that, and there's always been a concern about drainage through there. And my thought was, if you're adding material, the way the water moves through the area could change and could cause the toxic material to be either to be washed into the bay or washed or moved, making it not as contained. So I was just wondering about that. The other thing is, while this is not germane to this particular issue, I appreciate that your meeting is able to be called in, and I don't have to go through 25 steps to be able to ask a question, unlike yesterday's meeting with the township board. So thank you, and again, thank you for the recycling.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the recycling, so hang on. Kevin, is there anybody else in the public wishing to speak? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the action item. First item, an action item is the glass recycling program, and I'm going to let Derek take over, but I just want to mention that the most common complaint that Derek has received, and I know elected officials have received, is about the question of glass recycling. And in our priority waste mailer that went out announcing our new refuse program with the new contractor, specifically it was said that glass recycling was not going to be part of the recycling program. when we interviewed firms to take bids, all 4 firms that we talked to indicated that glass was really, most of it was going into the landfill, even though we thought we were recycling it. So we chose not to have a false premise on this program, and but I know that Phil Kennedy and several of you commissioners have always expressed if we can recycle glass, we want to do it. And we talked back then about having, this was last fall, about having a drop-off center for all recycling materials with the thought, well, maybe that'll save us money. Of course, we also recognize the monitoring problem that has to take place with that. So recently, through an effort of some women, and one of them was a lady named Diane Van Fossen who lives on the island, and she said she was going to be on the phone, but I don't hear, she didn't identify herself. At any rate, she had gone to a firm in Dearborn, actually off Wyoming Street. You got to go through Detroit off 94 on Wyoming. And there's a company called Glass Recyclers. So we had a meeting there. Derek attended, and Mrs. Van Fossen attended. We met, our priority waste was also part of the meeting. We were very impressed with their operation. And I'll let Derek take it over from there.
Bill covered it pretty well. We met also with a member of Priority, Dan, who was going to work with this glass recycling company to get us some pricing to provide a drop-off container and to take that product and have it recycled. We had talked to them quite some time ago, I think back in January. As Bill had mentioned, we had gotten quite a few comments from some of the residents and about their displeasure with us not taking glass longer, and we had gotten some pricing from them before, but it kind of died. So Diane brought it to our attention again, and that's when we did the tour that Bill had mentioned. And the pricing that you see in the motion tonight is the pricing that's most recent. What they were able to offer was basically a fixed charge of $230 per month, and that basically covers the cost of the container. And then every time we would have that container hauled, it would be $250 per haul. So if we take a look at the fixed charge, it's about $2,760 per year, and then we have it estimated at 8 pickups annually, and that estimate came from basically an estimate from the glass recycling company that they formulated based upon communities similar to our size, what they normally see as far as the frequency and quantity of product that is generated from one of these drop-off centers. This is an added service that would be a plus to the contract above the price that we currently have. So there would be additional cost to it and would be an additional service. Now, I do want to make clear, and we've had a lot of conversations about why we don't accept glass without it being in a single stream type format like is being mentioned in this motion or in this action item. When you put it into a commingled format, which you would normally see at your curbside, it goes into the compactor in the truck and it gets crushed. So when it goes to the single sort, the commingled facility, that glass just ends up getting disposed of because the value of it is not high enough to even bother to sort it out, and it's crushed and it's mingled in with garbage and everything else. So they just basically get rid of it. So there really is only any value to the glass product if it's in a single stream like this would be. So even when residents would place their glass in the curbside bin for it to be picked up by Waste Management, once it got crushed in that truck, it was just going in the garbage anyway. So I want to be clear that the elimination of glass as a recyclable product with the new provider wasn't about that they're not willing to take it. It was just simply that we were trying to cut out product that was going to the landfill anyways and overwhelming the MRF. That's the sorting facility with the work associated with sorting out product that was going to the landfill anyhow. So This would be an additional service that, as Bill had mentioned, would address a complaint that we've gotten from quite a few residents, but we have to temper it with the additional expense as well as the obligation. So the priority has mentioned this would only be really worth their while with the investment that they would have in developing this specific type can if we carried this service out through the remainder of our contract, which this, as of this fall, would be 2 years, I think, in November. So you would be obligating us as the township to a little over 2 years of this service. So keep that in mind as you take a look at whether you want to provide this additional service. Also, just a little bit of additional information. I did talk to Dan today about what kind of timing it would take to roll this out if we were to approve it, and he mentioned it would take about 4 weeks to develop the can and get it delivered on site. So you'd be looking at about a month out before we would be able to provide it, which obviously isn't a huge concern, but just so you kind of know what the timing is on it.
Derek?
Yeah, Jim.
Do we have any kind of idea when we talk about residents requesting this? Any way to estimate a number of residents requesting this?
I would estimate it at probably 25 or 30. They have a tendency to be very, very passionate about their request. I don't think that there have been too many issues that we've run across where a resident facilitated a meeting with a vendor and met us out there and toured the facility. So although it's probably a smaller number relative to the total population of the island, it's a very passionate group. There's no doubt about that. And they've been on us pretty much since the beginning of the contract to provide this additional service. So they definitely are persistent and passionate about their requests. So.
And how what's the thought on paying for this?
So if you guys recall, when we went through the budget process, refuse is upside down. It's been upside down for quite some time. It did have a fair-sized retained earnings, which we've been drawing down just simply because the fund balance there is, it's not intended to buy equipment, so we don't really save in refuse. So we've been drawing down on fund balance for quite some time. This will be pretty much the last year that we'll be relying on fund balance to make ends meet. So there will be an adjustment in the refuse line item charge on our residents' water bills next year. So that would be factored, this additional cost would be factored into that overall adjustment. And we'll kind of have a better idea for what that looks like when we start getting into the budget conversations. If you recall, I think we were about 70,000 to the red on refuse as it currently sits. So your number would then become somewhere around 75 rather than the 70 that we're looking at.
Jim, this is Bill Kostick. I know when we discussed awarding our contract, we wanted to recycle as much as we could. And I think this is a minor cost at this point. I think my view of it is we ought to try it.
Yeah, we're looking at what, a little less than 2 years, or right around 2 years. So around $9,000, $10,000, and I mean, there is no way to really find out how many people are going to use it unless you just have it and see. So yeah, I'm just concerned because it's what we're faced with all the time, where there's just a small number of people that are vocal, and you have an expense involved, and you're going to have an expense that you're probably going to pass on to everybody, and you just hope that there's a number of people using it, doing it, and because you can't really afford to do things for just, a handful of people.
Right.
So hopefully, although there hasn't been that many that have been vocal, that if we do this, there will be a lot of people that will would use it. Where is there a thought on where this container would be, Derek?
I did speak with the township administrator today about, I think, what my desire is, and that's to put it in or around Township Hall parking lot. And the intent in that is just to keep it honest, keep people from putting material in there that shouldn't be in there, keeping it visible.
That's a good idea, Derek. And then the other thing is, if there's not much use, if we have 30 people and that's the only ones using it, it'll be readily obvious after a month or 2 months how much glass we're collecting in the canister. You can figure it out.
The other thing that we might benefit from in this, just as maybe a little bit of a silver lining, is, we have, since the inception of the contract, discussed going to some sort of recycled drop-off center for all material, all products, doing single stream for everything to try to maximize, how much recycling product actually gets used. And, this might be a good trial for, that method, changing to that method, see how well it's received, how much it's used, and really kind of put our foot in the water to see, does the drop-off site stay clean? Are we having illegal dumping occur in it? Those type of things. So there might be some additional value, although minor, but might give us a kind of a feel for what that wholesale change might end up looking like. So.
Sure.
So can we run a test situation for, I don't know, a month, 2 months to see how the passionate people like to recycle the glass?
I don't think so, because Priority's concern was that they have an upfront cost to develop this container. It's not just like your standard dumpster. It's got a cover on it, and then they cut holes in it for your glass products, so you don't have people trying to throw couches in it and stuff. They have holes that you would put the glass items into. So it's really a specialized container, and that's kind of where the cost comes in, is they're trying to recoup the cost to manufacture the container, but also they're eating up a 10-yard dumpster that they could have used somewhere else that could generate revenue for them. So that's why you see that fixed cost. And if they're going to modify one of their containers, they want to make sure that we're obligating ourselves to it for a longer period of time than just a couple of months.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any availability for that type of container. Just rent one, not necessarily from them.
Yeah, we didn't have that
John,
conversation.
probably you could get a container that you wouldn't need it, but it'd probably be like a regular dumpster, and then you could have
but
people.
You don't know, and I don't know. None of us know.
No, you're right.
I know. This is Caustic. I know one thing. We have almost 5,000 water customers. We're talking about $1 a customer a year. So I think we should just, my recommendation
I was thinking we'd have 4,400 customers at the most, water. And that's only 500 difference, so I'm not too worried about that. But I'd hate to see a small group of people change everything. If we're talking about $10,000, it's $10,000.
No, you're right, John. That's the way this is, where we have to accept it for the rest of the contract. That's the chance we would be taking if we pass it, is that it could end up just being those 30 people.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so.
My guess would be, Jim and John, you're going to see a lot more than 30 people. You're going to see several hundred are going to do it. A lot of people have questioned me about it. A lot of people have questioned Derek about it. So I'm going to guess several hundred people are going to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Hopefully it'll be more than the people that have vocalized that are out there. And we know that on Grosse Ile, people don't talk to us. So there probably are more people out there. So.
You sound like Spiro Agnew, the silent majority.
Uh,
Well, one thing that I look at is you're going to have to educate these people because they're going to be coming down there shoving all kinds of junk in there. And these containers, I know I've seen them up north. They have just round holes where you got to put the stuff, and it says what goes in there.
right.
So you're
In
going to have
fact, go ahead,
the
Les.
people to put the stuff in there.
Right. We actually saw one of these when we were down looking at priorities. They had one, and they had it for cardboard. They had it for this, and different slits and holes, and yeah. And you can't get anything big in it, but and that's why it's probably a good idea to have it at Township Hall, so that it can kind of be monitored. So people don't throw other than glass in there.
Sure, kitchen sink.
Yeah, they'll pipe whatever they can get through that hole. Some people put.
Kennedy.
Okay, are there other questions? Are there other questions? Anybody else have questions?
Yes, Phil Kennedy has two questions.
Okay, Phil.
Well, actually, one statement, one question. When we went to Priority and looked at the recycling container that they had there, it was labeled as Jim said, but I looked inside the container and there was nothing outside of what was supposed to be in those sections of that container in there. It wasn't full of a lot of other junk. I mean, the section for cardboard had nothing but cardboard in it. Same with glass. Same with the plastic section. So I don't think we will have that problem on Grosse Ile. At least I wouldn't anticipate it. My other question, Derek, is the size of this container. What are the approximate dimensions of the container?
In the action item, there was a diagram.
Yeah.
10 feet long.
10 feet long, 8 feet wide, or 8 feet high.
3.5 feet high.
Yeah.
That amounts to about a 10-yard container. So.
Only 3.5 feet high?
Yep.
Yep.
So you're going to have to actually stoop down, or you put this up through the top?
They could drop it in
the
the top.
size with a peaked cover. So.
Yeah, and if you recall, they had their covers locked so that you couldn't just open the whole cover and throw a chair in or something.
Right.
They probably will have the holes through there.
Okay, so it's not the huge container like they had up on site when we visited.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Okay, are there other questions?
Well, I do have one more question. Derek, if I recall correctly, the total budget for recycling was in the neighborhood of 200 and some thousand. Was that for the whole contract or just for 1 year? Or can you educate me on that real quick?
I believe it was for 1 year.
1 year. So the percentage of this would be 5% of the total recycling cost then in that neighborhood.
Or 2%.
2%. Yeah. I don't have my calculator with me. Okay, fine. That's all the questions I have. I'll stay quiet.
All right, so if there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion one way or the other to approve or disapprove. What's your thought?
I'll make the motion that the Grosse Ile Department of Public Service approve the addition of glass recycling to the scope of services provided by Priority Waste. Cost of these services shall be an additional $230 a month for the container and $250 per pickup.
Is there support? Support?
This is Laura, I'll support.
Laura's supporting. If there aren't any other questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Let's do a roll call vote on that, Jim, if you want, or Bill, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Costick is yes. Phil Kennedy.
Yes.
Les Schmidtke,
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Laura said yes. Lenny's not here. John Riley,
Yes.
Jim Budney.
Yes.
All right, it's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. One thing I just want to add on that, we were not able to see the crush, but the finest product of all these glass bottles that are being recycled there, if you can envision a conveyor belt and take a regular little marble we used to play with, and break it into about 8 or 10 pieces, that's the way it looks, like a real thick sand coming out. And they ship it to both Ohio and Indiana to different plants where it's reprocessed. So it's a pretty impressive operation. So anyway, it's real recycling. And the only thing I'll add, when we met with the refuse company, they said when glass gets broken in the packers, as part of recycling, when it's mixed recycling, the glass destroys a lot of recycling because it breaks into shreds if you put windows in there and stuff. So anyway, I think it's a good move. I think we made a decision. So, thank you for that. Okay. Next item. The next item is dust control application 3. Derek?
Yeah, what's being requested is a third application with the vendor that we had approved a contract with a month and a half ago or so. If you recall, we have $40,000 in the budget for this fiscal year to do dust control, which has been pretty consistent as far as our cost with the dust bond material. So with this third application that we're asking for approval on, we are going to be below that $40,000 amount. We'll be at about $34,800 for the third application. As everybody knows, and for the benefit of the residents listening, we moved to a calcium chloride product this year because the dust bond material and the vendor that provides it wasn't willing to put a bid in on dust control for this year because of the complications with the bridge closure. So the only real option we had available was to modify the type of product that we put down, which is less effective than what the dust bond material is. So we increased the frequency at which we applied it from 1 time to 2 times. That calcium chloride product is cheaper. So where we save is in the cost per gallon, but where it costs us more is the fact that it's less efficient or less effective than the dust bond product, but really it was our only option for this year if we wanted to do dust control. We've had a very dry summer. As everybody knows, we've maybe had 2 or 3 rain events at most since the beginning of June. The first application that we put down, we actually ended up putting down more gallonage than we had originally anticipated just because the ground was really soaking it up with how dry it was. Once we ended up getting a little bit of rain, that first application actually worked okay. We decided to move up the second application where we had originally planned on doing it in August. We decided to do it in July. So the second application actually is going down this week. I believe they did their second day today. And John, do you guys have a third day and a fourth day, or just a third day planned?
John Kine, just the third day beginning tomorrow morning. We should be done by the end of the day.
So, and each time that we've done the application, the county has been here to do grading work ahead of it at the recommendation of the applicator, application company. So the county's been working in lockstep with John to make sure that got done ahead of the application. But I think if we can get a third application on the schedule, I think our residents will be very happy with the overall results. I think after the second application, some of our harshest critics that were real critical of the first application actually had emailed us and said, hey, you know what, things look pretty good. We appreciate the work that you guys have done. So I think if we can get the third application down in August, I think we'll have 3 months with 3 applications through the heart of the summertime, and I think the residents will be very well served with the dust control for 2020, all challenges being considered. So.
Okay, are there any questions?
John, do you have anything to add? Because John's really been the field guy working with the application company. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to it.
They've been doing an outstanding job, like we put out on the Groseville Connect. If you could possibly water it in front of your house, if we don't receive rain, which we're supposed to receive some rain tomorrow, the water helps it bind with the dirt itself and the gravel, so it helps it last that much longer. So if we don't get rain, if you can water it in front of your house, you'll be helping yourself out.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for approval. This is very difficult to conduct a meeting by telephone. Anybody want to make a motion?
Kennedy will move that we accept the proposal for the third application of the dust control.
Lance, are you going to support that?
Yeah, I'll support it, but I got a few comments to make.
All right, the floor is yours. So we have a motion and a support. Les?
I think it was a waste of money with that product because I've heard from different people that say a couple of days after it's been put down, it's dusty, and I noticed that in front of my own home. I can't wait till they get the bridge done and get the dust bond back. That Chloride or whatever they put down there just don't work. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I appreciate your sentiments. I guess that means you're in favor of putting a third application down because at least help us do a better job.
Well, I think it's a waste of money, but that's why I seconded it.
Do you want
There's
to
no other choice. There's no other choice.
No. Just keep our fingers crossed. Next year we can get back with the dust bond.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passed. Next item is Swan Island Pump Station. Derek?
This motion was before the Township Board at their meeting last night. It was approved, contingent upon you guys providing your support this evening. I think everybody is pretty aware of this project. It was one of two projects that were with engineering. This one kind of made it to the finish line first because of the complexity of the other project. It's taken a little while longer. We did go to bid on this. There were four bids that were received. The low bidder was TSP Environmental at a cost of $165,757.13. I think everybody should be pretty familiar with the design of this pump station. Basically a modified gravity system that uses a pumping station and basically what amounts to is a backflow preventer to keep the canal water out when water levels are high. There was a lot of information that was included in your packet, which included diagrams of the work being done, the bid specifications, the bid results, itemized bid results, a letter of recommendation of award from our engineers. They went and reviewed the references for the low bidder, and also pictures or a picture of kind of the problem that this pump station is intended to resolve. So, like I said, we've talked about this quite a bit, so I won't go too in-depth into it, but I'll take any questions that you might have regarding this package.
I got one question, Derek. Who's going to pay the electricity pump?
The township will be paying the electricity. We've already put in a request for address for that station, and I believe Raines has talked to a service planner regarding it, so it'll be our address, our pump station, our electric.
Okay. Do you know how much it costs us for engineering on this project?
Most projects are 18.5%, so right around that of 165, whatever, and change.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there other questions? I think we've all been out there and seen the situation. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the contract to TSP Environmental at a cost not to exceed $165,757.13 to perform activities associated with the Swan Island Drainage Project.
Okay, thank you, Jim. That was Jim, right?
Yes.
Is there support? I'll support it. Costick supported. Further discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? I have it as all aye votes. Was there any negative? If not, okay, thank you very much. Next item is a Meridian Road letter. Want me to take this, Derek?
Yeah. Yep.
I've been to Kroger's twice at least now, where people have stopped me, and a neighbor of mine stopped me, and they said, "What are you going to do about Meridian Road?" One person said, "I can't believe Meridian Road is this bad." So a lot of people, before the bridge was closed permanently, didn't drive Meridian Road. One of my neighbors came into Hawthorne off the bridge and very seldom drove Meridian all the way. So I thought, maybe it's time. I know the county's spending millions of dollars on bridges here, but we're never going to get Meridian Road fixed if we don't ask. So the letter tries to outline three things. In order to be eligible, Meridian Road, first of all, is on the federal urban aid system. The only three roads on the island that are on it are Parkway, Meridian, and East River Road. Laura, you're familiar with the federal aid system? We're on the system, which means we're eligible for federal aid money if it's properly funneled through the regional SEMCOG clearinghouse. So right now, their program is called the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. It's a 4-year plan. We're not on the TIP. Meridian is not on the TIP. The bridges have been on the TIP. We don't have any roads on the so-called TIP eligible for federal money. So number one, in the letter, if you read through it, we're asking them to be placed on the TIP. Number two, in order to have a project move forward with the county, they produce this annual list. It's called their needs list, which is their top 100 projects. And of that top 100 projects, they do about 15 to 18 a year, which represents about 15 to 18 miles, probably 15 to 18 $million a year. And they have to put up 20% for these projects. Well, and some of you will recall this, it's been an issue for us. In 2015, we were ranked number 75th on the needs list. By 2018, we're not on the needs list at all anymore. So Hal asked the engineer from the county to explain to us what happened. His easy explanation was, well, you don't have the traffic volumes and you don't have the accidents. So we were moved off the list. So we're asking him to put us back on the needs list, the high priority. And then the third item is, this is something that I thought we needed to do. We're asking the county to sit down with us, come out here and meet with us, talk about various funding options. For example, if there's no way we're going to get this paved within the foreseeable future, Meridian, one idea I had was, what some other communities do is say, we'll come up with a local share. Let's assume the local share, assume it's a $3 million project, the 20% share is $700,000. In 2022, we could go to the voters and say, will you give us the ability to levy a mill to raise $600,000, $700,000 and pay for it over 5 or 6 years, which would be what, 2/10 of a mill maybe, or something of that sort, and get Meridian paved. Otherwise, I don't see how we're going to get it paved. So that's what the gist of the letter attempts to do. I'll open it up to questions. Or comments.
Bill, I'd just say that, this is Jim Budney, I'd just say that, we need to try everything with our roads, to get something done, and I see nothing wrong with your letter.
Okay. Other comments?
Well, the one thing that Les has mentioned, many times. Yeah, I got a little noise. I got to step in. Les has mentioned many times. Yeah, Les Schmidtke has mentioned many times, and he's given us written information. They chip seal 72 that goes from Grayling all the way over to Traverse City. Now, we had a couple naysayers that had a problem with chip sealing, but we should each ask ourselves whether we really are investigating chip sealing or we get the hip shot with, oh, it'll never work. And I don't know that we've investigated it thoroughly. And if whatever county it is that Les lives in, those guys are chip sealing up there, and that's 72, and that's bad snow, and that's big plows. So what are we doing down here? To use Phil Kennedy's phrase, what are we trying to do, or what are we trying to accomplish? And I really asked that question, seriously.
Well, John, we were all in favor of chip sealing. And, well, of course, we ran out of money. But I like the idea of chip sealing. The only problem is I'm pretty sure if we brought any engineer out, they're going to tell us it's too far gone to chip seal.
My guess is if we really want to get involved in chip sealing, you bring out 2 independent analysis so you're not leaning on one crutch. No offense meant, Les, but you're not leaning on one crutch. You've got either 2 correct answers, or one's right and one's wrong, or one's different from the other. And there's got to be 2 places that could do that study. Because if we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's not our money. It belongs to the people.
Yep. Okay. Other comments, Laura?
I just wanted to add that, normally with what we've seen with Wayne County or others, I mean, in my business, we've reached out to Wayne County and other counties, but mainly Wayne, and the successful way of doing projects oftentimes is if you come in with a proposal for funding, and there's public fundings out there, and I don't know if we exhausted those efforts to look into those, but I think it's worth, looking into those and see what would work. But really kind of having talking the language with Wayne County, and I know that the county, official doesn't oftentimes return calls or emails, but I think if we put those plans together of available funding, it's worth to kind of pursue that. So.
Okay. Other comments?
It doesn't hurt to do it, so let's do it.
So,
one comment.
Yes.
Bill, I certainly support sending the letter as written. I think we have to continue to be a thorn in their side. But I also want to comment on what John Riley said. I fully agree that we need to evaluate chip sealing again. The one company that we had come in and speak to us at the meeting we had with them were very knowledgeable on the process and everything. The problem is they didn't bid on our project, if we recall. And I'm sitting right now in Western New York, and they chip seal all the secondary roads here, and they have heavy traffic on them, and it works out fine. It just has to be done properly, and then it has to be done repetitively. Probably every 5 or 6 years, they go back with a second application, and they just continue it. And it's a proven process with today's materials and application methods. It's becoming more refined as we go forward, and I think we definitely have to evaluate that.
Oh,
And
well,
Phil's talking about a geographic area that has very severe winters, very cold. They're at the tip of Lake Erie at the other end. That's the way the wind blows, that way. So
Okay.
it's once again similar to Route 72. You've got some fluctuations in temperatures and significant storm in the winter.
well, you know what, I like the idea, John. I'm totally in favor of chip seal if it can be done. So the letter's one issue. The other issue is, would you guys be willing to form a subcommittee and try to identify an outside consultant to come in and talk to us about chip sealing and what other options we might have there?
Maybe get the guys back that we had before and ask them flat out, are you interested?
Well, I'll try to find the guy's name. His name was Malcolm something. He had retired from MDOT, and he was working for a private company over in the Grand Rapids area.
Right.
This was about 5-6 years ago. I'll see if I can find his...
Maybe not quite that long ago. I'll look too. And Les keeps all his stuff. He's got a very good filing system, Les Schmidtke, so maybe he can find the stuff.
Okay.
I'll have to.
Well,
We had a big folder. We had a pretty good folder from that man.
Yes, we did. So, Les, if you can find it, or anybody,
I'll see if
like
I can
the
look it
idea.
up.
Derek, it might be in your, that folder should be in your office. I don't know what kind
Yeah, I
of
can take a
filing system was left to you, but yeah, no, we should look at every avenue possible, and not turn anything away. I mean, we had decent luck, I think, overall with our chip sealing, although we certainly, as compared to all our roads, we haven't done much, but down in Monroe, they do a lot of chip sealing, up by Les, they do a lot, obviously by Phil, they do a lot. It's certainly worth looking into.
Right across from the Monroe Country Club, I was looking at the road on my bike. I stopped. I talked to the resident. I asked him as many questions as I could think of, told him why, and he had nothing but good reports about the chip sealing on that road that's right outside of the Monroe Country Club.
Yep.
I talked to him for 15 or 20 minutes.
And John, you're right, because when we visited Monroe County Road Commission, they took us right out there and showed us what they had just done. And you're right. And I saw them doing it in Midland on a main drag, a 4-lane road through Midland. So
Well,
I'm
let
not
me
opposed.
say
I
this.
think that's great. Yeah.
So
can I appoint a committee? John, would you be interested? You and Phil and somebody else?
I'll do it. Jim.
Okay. I'm
Sure.
Okay, so who's is that Jim Budney?
Yes.
And John and Phil?
fine.
Phil,
Correct.
Okay, we've got a subcommittee. I like that idea.
Bill,
Yes.
last week I took a trip over to Traverse City on 72
Yep.
that they had done chip sealing from county line of Crawford all the way to Kalkaska. And that road was absolutely beautiful. And it's been 2 years. It's been through 2 winters. So
Well,
chip
what I'll
sealing
do,
really does work. It's held up beautiful in that northern atmosphere.
okay, you know what I'll do is I'll agree with the committee. I'll call the Crawford County Road Commission the next week or two and get information from them on what their chip seal specs are.
Kalkaska County. Not Crawford, Kalkaska.
Okay, Kalkaska County, okay. All right.
all right, that's good.
All right, what do you want to do with the letter? Just hold up on it or send it?
I think we ought to send
I
it.
think we ought to send it.
Send a letter. Yeah, send a letter.
I'd
So
say
I don't know,
send it.
need a motion? It'd be good to have a motion for the records so that we,
I'll
Hey,
make a motion that we send the letter to Wayne County to see if we can get on the, in the TIP project, and on the priority list.
Okay, is there support? John?
I will support it, Les.
Yes, okay. Any further discussion on the letter? If not, all in favor of signing the letter, indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? I heard somebody say something. Nobody's opposed? Okay. We'll send the letter. And we'll set up the committee, and Derek will help organize a meeting. I'll look for those files. Les, you're going to look too, right?
Yes, I am.
The guy's name was Malcolm something.
And those guys down in Monroe, see if somebody knows one of them. Because if they're doing it down there, they've got hands-on knowledge.
Yeah, they do it we met with them. Jim Budney, you were there when we met with them. I think
yeah.
Phil was.
They do it. Their road people do it every year.
Steve Van Arbor does?
They have their own equipment.
Laura says Washtenaw County does it too, so we'll see what information we can gather.
One time we were talking about doing the gravel roads. The gravel road with chip sealing, you don't have to put dust bound anymore.
Yeah, you brought it up. I don't know. Does that work? I mean, do it on the gravel road?
Yeah,
I believe they did say they could do it on a gravel road.
Yeah, the guy said he
All right,
can.
well, we'll explore it all, okay? All right?
Yes.
All right, we've discussed that. Next item is the director's report. So you got the floor, Derek.
Okay, wanted to go over a couple of different things. Do you guys want me to start with the project status report?
Yes.
So Ohio put this together. Unfortunately, he's got a meeting in Allen Park tonight, so I'm going to run through it. And John and Ryan, there's a couple of different things that span your guys' responsibility, so feel free to interrupt me if I miss out on something or you want to chime in. We had talked earlier about the Park Lane drainage project. They are still awaiting water levels to recede for the topo work to be performed. As of July 9th, the water levels were still too high. They have still been doing something in the meantime. They have been working with a pump supplier on sizing and layout, but really we're just waiting on that topo work to be able to really kind of put the plan together and figure out what we can and we cannot do there. Swan Island, we had a discussion about that tonight. So we'll give them the go-ahead tomorrow to start working and ordering products. I think what we'll probably end up seeing is maybe work starting within the next 4 to 6 weeks, and some of that will be based upon some of the lead time for some of the components that are part of that project, which with COVID, it's kind of screwed things up on the supply chain side of things, so hopefully we don't have any hiccups there. Everybody's aware of the water main projects and the bond revenue that we have that we're counting on to do some of that work. We're still planning on rebidding that for next construction season. I want to thank everybody that was able to make the wastewater treatment plant tour earlier today, and I think that these items here that are under the wastewater treatment plant project list will make maybe a little bit more or be a little bit more relevant to you, being that you probably had the opportunity or you did have the opportunity to review these items at our site visit today. Raw sewage pump number 1, Eagle has approved that project. We have received 1 quotation of the 2 quotations we're waiting on. We just need the balance of Suez's quotation to be received, and then that'll be something that'll be moving forward to you guys for approval and ultimately recommendation to the township board. Raw sewage pump number 4 and their intermediate pumps. That was the one that we had a brief conversation with earlier about the sizing and whatnot. The Part 41 permit will be applied for once the analysis is complete, and we'll be working with them to make sure that Eagle is good with the design and the receptive to a time extension that's been requested. the HVAC lab area there. Raines would like to bring in a mechanical consultant on that, so they're working with them on the scope of work, and also they are requiring a Part 41 permit, so we need to have that before any work can start. So I know Raines has been working on that Part 41 permit as well. The bar screen project is all but complete. They're planning on startup of that unit, I believe, on Thursday, and then training with the staff on Friday. So I think everybody that was at the meeting today at 5:30 realized how impressive it was, the installation work that was done over there, and the ability to shoehorn that piece of equipment into a pretty small area. So I know that the plant operators are very excited for that system to be operational because of the additional help that that'll provide in keeping all that negative material out of the plant. So I think that that's going to be a great project once complete, and we're really excited to see that thing in operation. We also talked briefly about the basis of design for the plant improvements. Raines is working with OHM. We do have soil boring proposals that we're going to be moving forward with to start the engineering part of that design. The topo work is done and the preliminary layout is completed. And once they get the results from the soil borings, they can continue on with the engineering. Just for the benefit of those that weren't at the meeting earlier, we kind of reviewed the scope of that work that's associated with the ACO. It really amounts to the addition of a one final clarifier, a third final clarifier, in addition to the two that we already have. And we kind of reviewed the location that'll be installed, that we've talked about previously with the deeding of those properties from the county to the township for where that thing's going to be installed. Asset management plan, we continue to work on that. So we have had a little bit of a delay with the COVID situation. We have the GIS computers here. They haven't had the maps uploaded, but we continue to do our TVing and our cleaning of the sewers and working towards our requirements under that asset management plan with Eagle. And then last but not least, the emergency repair of the sinkhole at the wastewater treatment plant has been completed, and we reviewed that during the site visit as well today, and that can probably fall off the project list next month. If there aren't any questions relative to any of those items, I did want to touch on a couple other projects, and once again, John, you can chime in if you'd like. But Al's Asphalt just finished up the paving projects that we had scheduled from last year under our 2018 local roads partnership with the county. If you recall, we did the concrete work last year, last summer before school started. The balance of that contract was asphalt work. So we did paving over at Rio Condos. We did paving over on Elba Island, and then we also did paving over on Swan Island. Also, part of that contract was crack sealing work that we did. That is now complete as well. The only real item that's outstanding regarding that paving work is restoration, which I know Alice wants to get in and take care of that ASAP, and we do as well, because the sooner we can get the invoice for that work, pay that work, we can submit our voucher to the county to get reimbursed. And we had talked on the financials about the retained earnings for roads being a bit light. Well, that'll help to reimburse that account and get us back to even with regards to the fund balance over there. So all in all, the paving project went pretty well. Obviously, we'd always love to do more, but with the limited funds that we have, we tried to prioritize those areas and get those done, and I'm glad that we could follow through with getting those promises taken care of as far as what we had decided to do from almost 18 months ago. So we had talked about the bar screen. John, do you want to speak to hydrant flushing at all and jetting and cleaning?
John Keim, the hydrant flushing program is still in progress. We're at Church Road southbound. If you check Rosedale Connect on a daily basis, you'll see updates of where we're moving to next.
And then
That's all.
on the sludge hauling, which I know is another item under my report, that work was completed before the bar screens started. There is a brief synopsis in the packet regarding how that all panned out, which kind of gives you some information about what we spent last year, what we spent this year, the overall effect of the program. For the benefit of the residents that might be listening, last year our total cost for sludge hauling was $236,000. This year we ended up at $116,937. So it was almost a $120,000 difference as compared to last fiscal year. And in addition to that, it's not just about cost; it's also about the result. And I think Ryan can probably speak to some of the work that they did over there. They did take off 58 roll-off containers, but really one of the biggest things that Ryan told me about was the fact that they were able to achieve 100% capacity upon their exit of our sludge tanks. There's an email that was included in this report from Ryan to me from last year. After the previous vendor had left, we still had a fair amount of material at the bottom of the tank. This was heavy material, rags, and those type of things. We had gotten a quote from a vendor to get that material out of that tank, because obviously it's like your car and your gas tank. If you've got sediment in 20% of your gas tank, obviously it causes problems, but it also reduces the capacity, and we don't want that. So we had gotten a price to resolve that. It was right around $8,900, $8,500, I'm sorry, to clear that out, and that was a cost that we were planning on incurring to resolve those issues last year. For whatever reason, I believe scheduling was the cause. They weren't able to do that through that private vendor. Well, enter Gullet Sanitation, who we ended up going with, and lo and behold, when they left our plant about a little less than a month ago, those tanks were at 100%, so we were able to achieve that increase in capacity by the elimination of that stuff we would have normally had to pay an extra vendor to take care of after the previous vendor had left. So I think all in all, we're pretty happy with them. I think they learned a couple of things while they were here. Once again, the bridge caused problems with cost. I think it was right around $1,800 in tolls that we had to pay to cover the sludge going off, because of lab testing, they weren't able to get in here until after the free bridge was closed. But all in all, it worked out pretty well, and I think in subsequent years we'll take a look at the process, and if we do end up going with the same vendor again, I think they'll even be better in subsequent years. So I just wanted to touch base on that briefly.
Well, thank you. So to the commission, this is Kostick. I want to just say, I was aware of what the sludge hauling savings was. I went out and watched them removing the sludge, and I got to tell you that through the efforts of Derek, I mean, he could have easily just stayed with Waste Management and gone through the same process and spent $200,000+. He looked at other options, took bids. We had 3 bids on this. He took a gamble on this firm out of Ohio, and I questioned him on it. Are you sure they can do it? He said, I think they can. But so he researched it, and then working with Ryan, between the two of them, they saved us $119,000 from last year, which is in our budget. I wanted to get this data so you could have it, because they did a great job on this, and I think they took a risk, and I think that they should be rewarded. At least they should be complimented. And I want to thank them for their efforts on this. So
Great.
I hope some other commissioners will comment on that.
Kennedy has a question.
Go ahead.
Derek, I'd like to go back to the beginning of your report, near the beginning. And when we talk about the Park Lane Drainage Project, I still wonder if we aren't getting way ahead of the game here.
No, we're talking about the sludge hauling. Still talking about sludge hauling right now.
Okay,
At least
I'll save my comment till the end then. I definitely want to compliment Derek on that. I'll save my comment on the previous until later.
Okay, does anybody else? I mean, I just think he did an exceptional job, and I want to acknowledge.
And I just say he did an exceptional job again. I mean, he he continues to impress me, and I'm thankful we have him.
Well, and Ryan was out there supervising it too, so between the two of them,
Well, and then Ryan too. Ryan's doing a good job.
we did it. We saved a ton of money, so we'll leave that at that. But thank you, Derek, for doing a good job on that. This is evidence. So with regard to the agenda, John, do you? The next item is John Keim. You're all done, John?
Yes, sir. Nothing more this time.
All right. Now, Phil, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to finish that discussion though on.
No, I
the
agree.
sludge.
I agree. Going back to the Park Lane drainage project, with the bridge closed, I bike around that area every couple days. And as I biked along there, I look at where the water is standing and where it's not going. And what I observe is that going south on Meridian from the tip to Harbor Point Road, which cuts off of Park Lane to the west, the ditches are full. You cross Harbor Point and the ditches are essentially dry proceeding south on Park Lane. And I'm just wondering if we aren't getting way ahead of ourselves in sizing pumps and building berms and everything else when we may simply have blocked drains. I mean, if you look at it, it's very obvious. The north of Harbor Point, the ditches are full. I've thrown leaves and that and grass into the water and it goes nowhere. South of Harbor Point, exactly maybe 15, 20 feet further south, one crossroad, and the drains are empty. And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't evaluate that situation in and of itself first before we go way into designing what is going to be an extremely expensive project when we may be missing the problem.
And Phil, you're not charging 18%, are you?
Oh, no, much more than that, much more.
Okay, I'm just checking. I'm just checking on that. Okay.
Well, understand, I only get paid $25 a month, so 18% of that.
Phil,
But I mean, I'd be willing to go out there with John Keim or Derek or anybody and maybe even somebody.
Take a look.
And specifically look at that, because it looks to me that the north side of Harbor Point heading west, it goes into a swampy area that's totally overgrown. And I'm just wondering if the water is just being stopped right there. Because south of Harbor Point, it goes somewhere. And even if we just connected the north side of Harbor Point to the south side of Harbor Point, we should be moving water.
Phil, you and I had this conversation a little while ago.
Yes.
And I think from my recommendation would be to at least get the topo done on it, and then we can kind of know what the elevations are and know where that water is designed
I
to
agree
go.
with you, Derek, but we've been talking about getting this topo done now for close to a year. And I'm not talking about doing a total topo. I'm just trying to, I would say we could very efficiently and effectively look at that one point. I mean, if water 12 feet away is going somewhere and water 12 feet on the other direction isn't, I don't think we need a topo for the 200 or 300 acres on the north side of the island.
Yeah, if there's just one specific point that we can take a look at that you think we might be able to improve things by a simple solution, I'm not opposed to that at all. Especially if it involves, ditching or something like that, which we all know we have a program coming up for that to be able to connect to drainage areas, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to that. And if you and John and I want to go out there and take a look at it, and you can kind of show us exactly what you're talking about and, see whether there's a simple solution in the meantime, you know, I'm not opposed to doing research or anything like that. So if you want, when you're available, get a hold of us and we can go out there and look at it with you.
I'd be glad to, because I just don't want to see us get several $100,000 into a project and find out that we didn't need to go that direction.
Important point.
Okay, very good comment, Phil. So I guess where we are in the agenda, gang, is commissioners' reports. Phil, you have anything else? We'll start with you.
No, sir. No, that's all.
Okay. Let's go to John Riley. Anything?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil? Oh, well, you already did, Phil. Les Schmidtke.
Nothing further tonight. Isn't that strange?
Laura.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Jim Budney.
I just have a question for Les. Did you finally get your street sign?
No, but I tell you what, Jim, this new list that they put out, guess what? They got my road right on this list.
That's all I have.
Bill.
Okay, and then finally Ted Van Oz.
I just want to thank Derek. You know, you've done a stunning job since you've been there, and the township owes you a debt of gratitude for the money that you've saved and your diligent work on the DPS department. You're a bright light. Thanks.
Good comment, thank you. Chairman's report. One thing I want to say is I hate these meetings over the phone. Look forward to the day when we can all be together and look at each other. That's my only comment. I don't have anything else. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
With that,
I'll make
go
a
ahead.
motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:29.
And I will support.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, goodbye, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Bill.
Good night now.
Thank you.